So what I just done is I had copied and pasted this key here, and to paste it down here. Now, if I want to manipulate this key, then there's another important thing to note. If I want to edit this key, right now I'm not going to edit this if I adjust this attribute. So if I change this to 1, press enter, my twist, and then key it, it did not change it, the one that was already there. It doesn't change half frame keys. I wasn't actually on that key in time. So what you have to do instead is use this step to the next key. And now when I change it and key it, it's going to change that value. Okay, so that's important to note. You'll get some really funny behaviors and you may not know why if you haven't reviewed this or don't know it. Okay, so there's 3 keys that don't exist exactly on a frame. You can also select all the keys like this and then just delete them. So you end up with a crappy animation like I do a lot, and that'll be useful. Now let me add some more keys back in. Okay, let me change my range a little bit here. Okay, so now I have some twist animation on my pumpkin. You can also frame your animation in the graph editor just by pressing F, or you can frame it all just by pressing A. I only have one curve, so it doesn't make a lot of sense. So you have your different, I always forget what these are called, spline tangents, your different tangents, and you have these handles, right? And so you can select a handle and middle mouse click on it and move it, and you can adjust your animation that way, right? Kind of like working in vector graphics, if you're familiar with those. You can break these handles, and then you could grab them individually if you want to. You can select these and change what type of tangent you assign to it. Okay, so you have those options. And then you have, we've already exposed you to this, but we have the pre and post infinity for cyclical animation, and you won't be able to see that, what's going on with it, unless you turn on to show infinity, which will always show up as dashed lines. Something that's useful in animation, a lot of people don't know this. Even at Disney, a lot of people didn't realize this, or had forgotten it. Let's say you want to change a value on a set of keys. You realize you need to insert some more animation between, one set of keys and another set of keys. So you can put more animation in there. And usually you will know the frame count that you're allowed to do that, because your shot will expand by a certain number of frames. Well, you can shift these values over if you want to by changing this time number here, and you can select all of them at one time if you want, and then if you type in plus equals, then you could shift these over by 10 frames, say 10. Press enter, and then in my graph editor you see they all shifted by 10 frames. That could be really useful. Or let's say you want to make this slow motion animation. So all you have to do is do normal animation and then say times equals 2, and then you've essentially halved the speed that all your animation will execute at. Okay? So you get twice the frames for that same animation. And you can do the same thing to speed it up. Just divide equals. So, divide equals by 3. Now it's 3 times faster than it used to be. That's really useful. Not for, if you realize, in the case of not walking fast enough. That might be handy. Okay, so it turns out just about anywhere you can plug in a value in Maya, that you can use those plus equals, minus equals, times equals, divide equals values. And all that's doing is it's taking the value that currently is there and it's adding something to it, in the case of plus equals, adding whatever value you type in to the value that was already there, and then that is the new value. So if 10 was already there and you said plus equals 2, the resultant value will be 12. I could also exaggerate these frames if I wanted to by doing the same thing. I could say times equals 1.5, and now that frame is going to be on, or that value will be at 15 instead of 10 in this case. Okay. Now another thing, there's shortcuts. The shortcuts are always good. So some shortcuts for animation are, everybody should know so far that you can press S on your keyboard and it will key all the keyable attributes on your selection. So if you had 100 controllers selected and you pressed S, every keyable attribute on all 100 controllers will get a key. That is a terrible way to animate. Okay? Imagine what your graph editor would look like after just 3 keys. It would be horrendous. So you should only key the values that you intended to key. Okay, don't key everything out of laziness. It's going to bite you. So here's a shortcut. If you press Shift W, it will key only your translates. And most of the time they need to be keyed together. Pretty handy. Okay? If you press Shift E, then you'll key only your rotates. Also pretty handy. And Shift R, you guessed it, that keys only your scale attributes. Okay, also handy. Now, another thing that people do, I was going to say students, it's not just students do this, is they turn on this auto keyframe toggle. Turn that on. Every time you make a change to an attribute, it's going to key it. So I got a new black dot right there. So it keyed that value. Well, if you're selecting a bunch of things and you're moving them all around, then you're going to get a lot of automatically made keys. Now, so I don't recommend working that way. You can also create what's called a character set. And I'm not going to go into that because I don't actually care for them that much. But if you want to know, I'll just tell you